The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Welcome to Thriving in Multifamily, a visionary podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. Join in as we explore motivation, inspiration, and engage in thought-provoking conversations. We provide actionable ideas to help you establish a solid foundation to achieve your career goals. I am your host, Lissi Daniels, and I'm excited to bring you inspiring stories that will empower you to reach your full potential. Hello and welcome to Thriving in Multifamily, a visionary podcast. I am your host, Lissi Daniels, and today's episode is brought to you by Multifamily Media Network. And can I say I'm excited to have not only you, Ronald, woohoo! No, such a good friend, and also he has his own podcast, Rooms with Ronald, fellow podcaster with me, joining me today as we speak about inspiration. We're finding the inspiration through the struggle. Welcome, Ronald.
Lissi, I am so excited to be here with you. Like, this is, I'm a big fangirl.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours too. I promise you. You are doing amazing things out there in this world and killing it. So thank you for being a part of my podcast. And let's kind of get started and talk about thriving, right? How does that look like? Finding inspiration through our struggle. I think we all have one time or another gone through obstacles or challenges or just anything to get to where we're at. So first and foremost, let the world know your story and just how you got to where you're at. And let's kind of dive in from there.
Yeah. So most people think of me as this happy-go-lucky, kind of over the top of all of energy, right? I think that's kind of what I have. And that's the persona that I put out. But what a lot of people don't know about me is that early on in my life, I struggled with mental illness. So I I was one of those kids, I was a perfectionist throughout my whole life, right? And so I remember the first time I went to middle school, I got a B on my for the very first time in my life, I got a B. And it was a B plus. And I went home and I cried because I got a B plus.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. I can feel your pain.
There was something with there. And so like anxiety just kind of built up over the years. And I always feel like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like I had to be this perfect image. And so I started working early on. Like my aunt made me get a paper route like on Saturdays at like you had to get up at 4 a.m. to deliver these papers and like you wouldn't get to bed till midnight because you had to roll them back in the day. So I started really early. But in high school, when I was a junior in high school, I actually got committed to a psychiatric ward. I attempted to kill myself via, I took a whole bunch of medicine like Tylenol, ibuprofen, all the things that really aren't going to kill you. But like when you're struggling, you just did not know that, right? So I was just like, I went to work sicker than a dog. Like I was so sick. And I remember like having to go home from school and tell my mom what I did. And so at the time I was going through counseling. And so we went and told the counselor what I did. And so they admitted me to this psychiatric ward or they sent you over to get evaluated. It was a youth one. And the crazy thing about my counselor was this counselor was the same lady who had committed my mother 17 years prior, right after she had me. So I was seeing,
Oh,
so it was like a full circle moment. And I
yeah.
remember getting like my mom having to sit in with the psychiatrist and they're evaluating you, I'm like, I had to tell my mom everything. And this is a family friendly podcast. And we can't go into everything that I did that I
Yeah.
had.
No,
But,
no, yeah.
but so she made, but I was 17. And for me, that was like the first time that I ever had heard my mom say, I love you. I just grew up in a family where we did not talk about that. We did
Mhm.
not talk about like our feelings and I love you. And so they admitted me. My aunt drove my mom and I to here. And my aunt told me when they were leaving, my mom said, "Hey, I can't leave my son there. Let's go back and get him." And my aunt had raised him my whole life. And my aunt said, "We can. I do know that if he's tried once, he's going to try again until he succeeds. So if you want that on your hands,
Mhm.
then that's on you. Like we can go do that." And they kept me there and I got the help that I needed and I got put on the medication and I got the different coping methods. So like
Mhm.
at that time in my life, I used to be a cutter.
Mm.
And so like I learned that, well, cutting is bad for you, so I don't recommend that. But if you get a rubber band and you flick yourself with the rubber band, it's that same sensation. And even to this day, like when I start to feel overwhelmed or I have that voice inside my head that I would never act on, but there's still that negative voice in my head. I will take out the rubber band.
Mm. Oh my
I will,
goodness.
and a lot of people don't know about me because I
Yeah.
try to, make it, and that's why I would say my sense of humor is so dark, is because I had to, overcome with that. And it's like part of it was growing up in Indiana as a gay
Mhm.
male, where it was,
Yeah.
and like, I mean, for the longest time, my family ever said, if we ever have anyone gay in our family, we're going to disown them. So
Uh,
like, there was all that struggle that they didn't know.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the 2000s and early 2000s where no one knew,
Mhm.
what is going to be. So yeah, so I think like for me, it's smiling through that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That is a story. And I mean, and to see where you have come so far, where you're at. And I think at the end of the day, we all experience some serious struggle of where we're at and relating to where we feel like we're all alone or we feel like we have the doubt or we're not, in a place that, we're loved. And I appreciate you so much for sharing that, a part of you, Ronald, because it's so inspiring for other people to understand that you have a voice, you have people out there who wants to listen to it and see that you can get through it. And reminds me of so much of my own struggle in that sense and finding that inspiration, because I think at the end of the day, there's moments where we have those times where we feel like we hit rock bottom, or we have those moments where we feel like we don't know where to turn left or right. And we have to stay so focused on, what is beyond that. But sometimes we don't see that. And then sometimes it's just that person to say, you know what, I'm going to hear you. I'm going to listen to you. I want to help you. And don't know how that is. It could just be a simple ear with that. And so to see how far you've gone and it can help someone else out there is truly amazing, Ronald. So I do appreciate you sharing that part of you, of your story, because I don't think, and it kind of reminds me in times in my life where I felt, I had my dark moments, losing a father or going through, uphills and downhills, and knowing that um, the pain is there. That pain is there. And how do you overcome it? What is it that you do? And staying positive and being that humor of yours is what keeps you going. Or it could be someone, writing or, and really focusing what their spiritual guidance is or whatever that direction is. So, man, so with those challenges and that and overcoming that, how did you continue to say, you know what, I want to continue to push and thrive for, where I'm at today?
Yeah, so part of going through the therapy is they teach you those different coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
So I actually took a lot of that pain and I wrote it into songs and like I went through that. And then I remembered like my mother saying she loved me was kind of like that turning point, right? Like now
Mm,
I felt that love and now I had something to work for. And I
yeah.
always knew like I wanted to be better than my family. When, not that my family, my mom never left home. Like she always lived with
Mm-hmm.
them. They never traveled and I wanted to be well traveled. I was the first one out of my siblings to get a college education. They all lived in like a 2 mile radius. And so I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I started in multifamily 10 years ago, I took a job in California. Like I was working at an airport hotel in Indianapolis, went through a snowstorm, and I knew one person in California. And I said, I'm going to California. I told my mom I'm going to California. They're like, okay. Like none of them had ever been on a plane. So that was like this whole new like concept. And I came back and I said, guys, I'm moving to California in 3 weeks. I got a job. I have an apartment. Like I'm moving away.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because no one believed me, right? That's just not what you did in my family. They're like, no, no, like I'll believe it when I see it. And I remember like packing up the car. And there was like I had something to prove to myself then though, because then
Mm-hmm.
it became it's real. And now it
Mm.
became they were making bets against me.
Yeah.
You're gonna be back in 6 months. You're gonna be
Ye-
back in 2 months, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be up and you're gonna hate it. And now everyone was betting against me, and that's how I rose up, right? You know, I was like this.
Yeah.
And I remember like my undergraduate degree was hospitality. I remember like getting from Indiana to the Illinois state line and saying to my friend who was driving with me, "Oh my gosh, am I making the biggest mistake of my life? Like I'm going against I don't know anyone. There's none of this." And I totally believe in signs.
Mm. Oh, yes. Yes.
And so as soon as I said that, I kid you not a minute later, my phone rang and I had a voicemail from the National Apartment Association telling me don't forget to register for the student housing conference that's kicking off in a few weeks. I had never gotten a phone call prior to this moment of self-doubt from this association. I didn't even know what the student housing conference was. And I looked at and I said, okay, this is scary, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this is a sign that I am heading in the right direction. And when I have
Yes.
these moments of doubt, it's like, oh, I don't belong in this industry. I don't belong here. I don't belong at this table. I always think back to that moment and said, if this wasn't the right place, I would have never gotten that phone call.
Ah, wow. You hit on quite a few nuggets, I would say. You know me and my little nuggets. And it's just the fact that dedication, right? I think we all have this inner self drive when we are trying to prove something within ourselves that we're going to do it, right? I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And then you like tapped in on like signs. I'm a firm believer of signs. I'm a firm believer of seeing things and being very observant to things around the world and your universe because they speak to us. It does. And then in a sense, things does come back to us tenfold, right? And so this the timing of everything, full circle of things is so true. And I just love that. Keep going. I'm like so encaptivated with this.
So then I got here to California. I knew one person, this whole thing, and then it was just kind of like I dove into the leasing realm, and like
Mm-hmm.
after a month, the company I worked for was like, you actually have a bigger skill set than leasing. Like you
Yeah.
have fun, you're competitive. So then they created this position for me. I became this like director of student marketing. And I
Mm-hmm.
did that while we're building partnerships with the university as we were changing demographics. And then they came in and they said, um, oh, now you're the assistant manager and leasing manager all put into one. And I was like, okay, you know, and so this is over the course of 2 years. And then like this moment happened. And, you know, I told you everyone was betting I was coming back to Indiana. The owner of the company I worked for came in and said to me, I just bought a property at the University of Notre Dame, which is in South Bend, Indiana, and you're going tomorrow to be the manager.
Wow. What was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, do I have to? Like, that's in Indiana. I swore that I was never going to go back to Indiana, right? That's what everyone said.
Yeah, yeah.
But how do you pass up an opportunity where the owner of a company comes to you and says, this is what you're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So I hopped on the plane. I made it happen. I worked through it. And then I, you know, did that for a year, was great at it. And then I had an opportunity to go get my master's degree, which told me after like this transition, I was just like, oh, is this the industry I wanted to stay in? The master degree opportunity presented itself, which was yet another sign, right, that I was
Mm-hmm.
in the right path. So I did that. And then I swore after graduation I was going to move back to California. Except for then I met my husband. Well, I reconnected with my husband. So when I went back to graduate school, we had known each other in undergrad
Mm-hmm.
and we both had moved away at the same time. and we both moved back the same weekend to our hometown, and we ran into each other the very first night
Aw.
in the town. Like, so I was just like, oh, so yeah, here's another sign.
It was meant to happen. It was
This
meant.
has meant to happen. So yeah, that's kind of like all these signs what make me know I'm doing the right thing. And this year,
Yeah.
like I've been telling people for like 2 years now that I'm going to apply for the NAA Emerging Leader
Mm-hmm.
Award.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to do it, and then I never did it because I read the previous year's like bios, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to compete. Oh, I'm not an emerging leader. I'm just Ronald, and I'm not making a difference. I'm just out here doing my job and not impacting people in the way that these people are impacting. And this is the last year that I could apply for it. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
so I told 4 different people, you have to hold me accountable. I need
Yes.
an accountability partner because this self doubt that I struggle with every day.
Mm.
A lot of people don't know that about me is I struggle with self doubt. Like I am a huge like sufferer of imposter syndrome.
Ah, yeah. Oh gosh, we could talk about that.
So like for me, like so finally these people said, did you apply? Did you apply? And I was like, no, no. And so finally they all texted me on the same day and they said, you have a week to apply. And if you don't apply, I'm going to apply for you.
Mm. Mm.
So that kind of like gear, like put me into gear. And so like, I was like, okay. So we applied and like, it went out and I never thought in a million years that I would be a finalist leading up. So that self doubt, I'm glad that I had accountability partners because if I had not told people and they did not hold me accountable,
Mm-hmm.
I would have never applied and I would have never known my true worth.
Yeah. Wow. Man, you just said a load of great things right there. And it is about your true worth, right? And I think that's the number one stigma is self-doubt that holds us back from believing what we truly can accomplish and truly can do. And so what do you believe that some that could be some of the challenges that people face when it comes to creating their journey or their career path? Is self-doubt and really not owning on to who they are?
Oh, yeah. I think like you get, once you get inside your head, it is
Mhm.
so hard to get out of your own head. And
Mhm.
like everyone has struggles, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's Pride Month, I'm LGBTQ. Like for a long time, that was my barrier.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
never going to get past this point because I'm a gay man.
Mm.
No one wants that. I'm too much for people. There's not going to be a company out there that's going to invest in that because you know what? Like we have to look like this and we have to act like this and this is not. And you get, but it's because that's how we grew up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
my goal is that Gen Z that's growing up and seeing all the stuff that is now normalized, they don't have those struggles. Just like
Mhm.
again, the people who fought in Stonewall and all of that, like I didn't have to experience that. Like I
Mhm.
get to go out to LGBT plus places that they don't have to have boards on the windows anymore. Like
Mm.
they did in the 80s and early 90s, right? When you
Yeah.
those establishments, there was boards you didn't know. Now it's like here we are, we have pride parades, and it's like companies are changing their logos.
Yeah.
So that to me, from in that capacity, is thriving.
It is. Oh my gosh, it is. And and that's the thing about Gen Zs. You want them to change the world, right? And the things that my generation or the traditional generation is that are so stuck on certain things, and to be that new influence, it's all about love. And I think at the end of the day, we have to all come together with that and make a bigger impact and make a difference. But you're right. I think sometimes we get stuck in that and not be able to look at different perspectives of other things out there in the world or people to understand where they're coming from, to thrive, to become better at the end of the day. And so I love how you tapped on that as well. And something else you really tapped on is just being an emerging leader. I think we're all leaders in some kind of way. You're an emerging leader. How does that next leader look like? What would you say? Okay, this is what we can do. This is how I can inspire you to be that next emerging leader.
So I think it's making sure, like an emerging leader to me is making sure that everybody has a seat at the table.
Mm.
Think like, that we're, because as you said, Gen Z to change the world. Well, guess what? Before Gen Z can change the world, I have to change my piece of the world.
Mm.
And I have to make
Oh.
sure my voice is heard and that I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it. And I remember early on in like my life, like I did a lot of like different youth groups of different like organizations. And one, we saw a speaker, and it was right after the Combine shooting. And like, so
Mm.
she had lost her like kids in the shooting, and she was going on this national tour speaking. And she said something to me that stuck out to this day, that she said, be the change you want to see in the world.
Oh my gosh, that's a quotable moment. That is so true.
And I was just like, here I am, like sixth or seventh grade, and I'm like, well, I can't be able to change. Like, I'm one person,
But you
but it takes
can.
to change that, right? So, like,
Yeah.
so that was like my very first life motto, and my second life motto that I tell people is, and this actually goes back to the story at the beginning where I, attempted suicide. Was you have two options in life, and this is a Mel Robbins quote, and it's either you succeed or you survive. To this day, I live by that, right? There's things I don't want to do. There's some days that my depression hits in and I don't want to get out of bed because that's just, how depression works. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say, Ronald, do you know what? You have two options. You succeed or you survive. If you get out of this bed, one of those two things are going to happen. And if you survive today, that's a win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think
Man.
with that. And actually, what's so funny, Lucy, one of my friends has like where I'm staying at this week has this quote on the board, and it says, "Allow people to fail, um, but expect them to learn from it."
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Now, by partnering with Chadwell Supply, they'll help communities rather stand out in an increasingly competitive market. So learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Wow, that is deep. Oh gosh, that is very deep. I love that. See, it's all about inspiration, right? Where you're at and
Yeah.
what we're talking about today. And I think that is truly something to kind of think about. And you hit on so many different nuggets, Ronald, in regards to, um, I like how you basically turned around and said, I can either you have to succeed, right? You don't want to sit there and fall back. You want to continue to move forward. You want to continue to press forward and really see what it is in that light. And I think you mentioned it earlier too regarding being a perfectionism, right? And sometimes that drives us as a driver, but sometimes that can hinder us at the same time. And that can cause that with at least with me when it comes to the overthinking and trying to outdo. But I just love how you just put the full circle and the whole story behind that, envisioned that, and I truly think that's awesome. What are some ways you think you could be effective or people can be effective when it comes to just staying motivated? Because again, I know you tapped in a little bit, but what are some things that they can dive in to be motivated as far as within their career aspirations?
I think this is like motivation comes in all shapes or forms, right? So, like
Mm-hmm.
for me and my career aspirations, like one of the things I love to do is travel. So,
Mm-hmm.
like that movetts me, right? Like
Yeah.
I often tell my husband, I don't work for the paycheck, I work to travel. So like really, going to work is like a cost saving things for me. Like I would probably own an island because I just love to travel so much. But so like finding that, and I find like even in my personal life, like I am super competitive by nature, and so
Mm-hmm.
last year for Lent, I gave up a lot of different things, but I also added 30 minutes of exercise to my everyday thing. So after
Yeah.
40 days, I have now created this habit. And so last night I was sitting with my friend and we were talking, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I had no motivation to go to the gym. I had none. And they like these, and so when I needed that, I open up my app on my Apple Health, and it says
Yeah.
you have closed your all three rings for the last 470 days. Guess what I did, Lucy? I
Went
got up,
to-
my clothes on, and I said, I am not letting today
I love that.
that I ruin a 470-day streak. But then
Oh
I
my.
also learned, like, when I go to the gym, that's where I watch TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That gives me a reason to go. So when I'm at home, I can do something else. Like I can spend quality time with my family because I'm on the road a lot. I can read the book that I've been reading. I can do all those things. Whereas most people are just sitting at home and watch TV. So like I find motivation in that way. And I find motivation in inspiring other people. I never thought
Yes.
myself, right? I never thought that people would look up to me and like when they, I don't know how you felt when you got asked to do a podcast. When they asked me to do a podcast, I was like, no one's going to listen.
Right?
No one hear
I,
my voice.
I have the exact same sentiments. I was feeling the same way because you don't think that your story or what you can have or what you can give to the world is something for everyone out there. But I'm going to tell you, but there is, right? Someone
Yes.
wants to hear what you have to say, Ronald. And because it draws from that, because that person can be like, you know what? I'm going through that too. I'm dealing with that. I can resonate with that. If he could do it or she can do it, I can do it. And I think that's what makes the bigger impact. Whether it's just one person or two people listening, at the end of the day, it's what you're putting out there. So you are an inspiration, and and sharing your story, it's what brings commonality, but brings connections at the
Yeah.
same time.
And I
So,
think that's why things like these are so important to have conversations, right? Like you and I
mhm.
could have got on here and we could have talked about all my multifamily journeys and my struggles and
Yeah.
that. But however, I don't feel like that makes me a human.
Ah,
That makes me like a figure in a space, and I don't get to know, like, you don't get to know me as a person. And
yeah.
that's the joy of multifamily, is you get to know everyone as a person and like what makes them tick. And I don't think we do a great job at building those connections
Mm-hmm.
in the workplace, right? We hear about how did you get to be the CEO of the company? Well, I did this year and I did this and I did this.
Yes.
It's this very linear. You don't get to see the mess.
You
And I
don't.
can tell you, there are times that like I'm like, I don't want to do my hair, but I have to be on camera, so I had to make sure my hair looked good. You have to do all those things. We have to normalize just being people in
Oh
this
my
industry.
gosh, yes, I agree with you 1,000% because everyone has something that they're going through, they're dealing with, that they are trying to figure out day in, day out. And at the end of the day, it's all about true authenticity. And we're real people going through real problems, real situations, just trying to figure out what tomorrow is going to bring and how we're going to build up the next day, right? It's not always about work, or it's not always about, it's another outlet. It's another way of saying, hey, we may be where we're at, but man, let's take it back. We had a story, and we had chaos, and we ain't perfect. We're just like you, trying to navigate to the best that we can be. So I agree with you on that 1,000%.
One of the one of the things, like for me, and like if someone's listening to this, like just know, like I used to be so nervous to go talk to people in the industry that I looked up to. Like I could give
Mm-hmm.
you a long list of people now that I'm really good friends with, but like early on, like I saw them and it was like starstruck, right? Like I was like, these are big deal names in this industry. Like I just can't go have a conversation with them. Like
Yeah.
I'm just. But then I realized, like, A, that's all in my own head. They
Yeah.
like these people have never put on like Facebook, LinkedIn, anything that says, please don't approach me at a conference. Like it's actually the opposite, right? Like
Yes.
they are very friendly. And so like I had to get out of my own head and say, I can go talk to whoever I want to, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why they're here. This is what we're here for. And so
Mm-hmm.
like for me, that's also a motivation, is like knowing like I want to make sure that when I'm in public or when people call me, or like I don't come across unapproachable. And sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
do. Like it's something I have to like mentally like, because like once when I'm by myself, my face is just kind of stoic because like I'm thinking about the 900 other things
Mm-hmm.
that is going on in my life, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm at a conference, I also have a full-time job that I'm doing, and I have
Mm-hmm.
XYZ that's going on in my personal life. And so like it's not that I'm not in that moment. It's just I'm also in my head thinking about 4 or 5 steps ahead. So like I do come across this sometimes of like, oh, you look very serious. I don't want to talk to you. So like I want to make sure that people know that like you have to be also self-aware of yourself to thrive.
You do. That is so true. And be cognizant of that as well too, as far as being approachable. And I think that's just with my personality. And you hit it. I'm always smiling. I'm always trying to be happy. I'm always trying to positive. So, I had an aunt that called me Positive Patricia one time. She's like, "Are you always positive?" And I always had to sit back, like, "No, there's moments I don't, but it's an effort. It is a process, but it goes into building those meaningful connections, right? It really is about how do you connect with someone? What is that one thing you think really makes someone connect with you, Ronald?
I just think that it's the personality for me that like people
Mm-hmm.
come and like I'm like you, I try to be positive, and I think sometimes I try to be over positive to make
Mm-hmm.
up for that, self-doubt in myself or
Mm-hmm.
want to put that positive spin on things because people are struggling. And like for me, the thing I take pride is I don't know what your struggle is. You don't
Yeah.
have it out. And actually, like I was doing a leasing training once, and we were talking about. She's like, "You're always so upbeat and happy," and I was like, "It's not like this all. It's not always rainbows and sunshines in my world, but that's what I want you to see." And like, she had shared with me that she had went through something similar where she tried to kill herself and things like that.
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, we bonded over that commonality." The difference was is what I did not realize was is mine was in my youth, hers
Mm-hmm.
was later in life.
Mm. Yeah.
But it brought me back full circle because my grandma did the same thing when she was in her 70s. She tried to commit suicide.
Oh my goodness.
She was going through it. And in that situation, we talk about signs. It was actually a good sign for her because they found out she had cancer and they were able
Mm.
to get rid of the cancer for a couple years before later on. But so that was like that moment of like, I want to make sure. And that's when she told me that. And I was just like, I don't share my story enough. People
Yeah.
see this, like, here, he's always happy. But guess what? I struggle every day
Uh, you know what?
with
And
something.
I totally can resonate with you on that. And I'm glad that you had opened up to share your story because I think that really falls into, like you said, the line of thriving. Thriving is just not being perfect. It's not having A go to B to C to D. It's the in between, right? To get to where you're at. In that sense. And then connecting. It's like you don't know what someone's going through unless you sit there and you start finding commonalities. And it could be something that happened in, like you said, from your past, and this was happening in her present, but you found something that was able to connect and build that meaningful connection. And I think it goes back to listening. It's just really truly listening to people and understanding. And, I have, my moments just as well. And I think when you can find that person that understands you, boy, that's that strong empathy that comes through, right? And in that sense. And that's what builds those long-term people in your life. And I'm so grateful that, our paths has crossed, but I'm grateful that, we have those people that we can share that with as well. So any like advice you would give someone out there when it comes to, stay, positive, stay encouraged, or inspire? I know you said a lot of golden nuggets throughout this episode, but I just want to, tap in a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So one of the advice I always tell people is uh, find the moments when you're the best version of yourself, and surround yourself with people who are going to tell you, hey, you're the best version of yourself today. What you
Mm,
just did, that's the best version of yourself. And guess what? It might only be for one moment that day. But if you do it one moment today and then you do it again tomorrow, but this time now you do 2 moments, at the end of the year, there's 365 moments that you were the best version of yourself, at least. So it
mm,
compounds. And once you start struggling through it, you're like, "Ooh, I like that. I like the way that made me feel." The one thing that I also tell people that I hate, and this is like someone who struggles with this all the time, right? Is like the fake it till you make it. Don't fake it till you make it, right? Like
mm,
if you're struggling, reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
You don't have to be happy. You pick up the phone. I would rather you call me at 2 a.m. and say, hey, I'm having a moment, or 7 a.m., whatever time works for you, right? I'm having this moment, than having to read in the paper that you did something or this happened,
Yeah.
and having to make that. Like, I would rather take the time right near and just listen. So like
Yeah.
finding that inspiration and just knowing what makes you happy.
Mm.
When I get sad, I throw on, I love sad music. Lisa, you've been around me long enough now. You know I love to sing. I'm
Yeah.
not good at it, but I love to sing. So I will put on some like sad music and I will sing my feelings out.
I love that. So you sing and I love to dance. So you know what? We'll move around.
We have a whole like we're gonna create a band.
Let's do it. Anyone else want to sign up for it?
And then like even like in the workplace, that's too like
Yeah.
we have a lot of stress going on. And one thing is so funny, my boss will call me and like I'll just start singing when I answer the phone. I don't know. Whatever song pops into my head, I just start singing that. And a lot of times that's how we start our mornings. And so now
Yeah.
sometimes the joke is like, you okay? Because you didn't sing this morning. I'm like, yeah, I've just done like 900 things in, like going through things and like finding that.
Uh,
But I always tell people, no, it's okay to have moments. It's okay not to always smile. It's
mm-hmm.
okay to say to somebody, hey, I know I'm usually going 900 miles per hour. I'm fun and I like to be around people, but I need to detox right now. I need to
Oh,
go like
yeah.
just set time aside to sit in my chair, drink my coffee, do whatever it is, and not. It's not that I'm mad at you. Sometimes people think I'm mad at them when I'm
Mm-hmm.
quiet.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm struggling right now. It has nothing, and I feel like as a society, like we tend to blame ourselves for everything.
We
Like,
do.
oh, he's not talking to me because he's, mad at me. And I even do that with my own friends. Like, I have a friend who is notorious for not texting. Also going through things. So like this week, I literally got a text that like was a screenshot, and he was like, "You're not the only person I don't text, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, I get it. I just want to make sure we're good." It
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? The world doesn't always revolve around you as a person in other people's lives. So like just know if they're
Yeah.
going through something and all you can do is say, hey Lissi, seems like you might be going through something. Just know if you need to talk or if you need to vent or if you need XYZ, I'm here for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
After that, it's on that person, right? So if that person is
Yeah.
where you've done something with them that you've upset them and they don't communicate it, that's
Mm-hmm.
nothing you can do. So
No, that's
like, I
true.
understand.
It's only so much you can do. And that's some really great advice that you gave, because at the end of the day it is with us, right? But also knowing that, reach out and really and try to connect with someone if you're going through those moments or those times, and don't always think it is about you. And at the end of the day, everyone's going through something, but it's just, you have to be there for one another too. And I always say, in loving and kindness ways, and be patient with yourself. I love what you said. Oh gosh, you definitely have hit on a lot of nuggets today, Ronald, and I so appreciate, and I'm more inspired by you more than ever, of just your story and where you're at and where you're going. But it goes back full circle, and finding that inspiration in your struggle and continuously moving, staying focused, and finding those people that you can draw from. So I truly appreciate you being a part of Thriving and Multifamily Visionary Podcast. And as always, everyone, connect with Ronald on his podcast as well, which is Rooms with Ronald, which is amazing. And then secondly, stay visionary, everyone. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Thriving in Multifamily, a visionary podcast. I hope our conversations have inspired you to act and achieve your career goals. Remember, the key to success is to continue learning and growing. And as always, stay visionary. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our industry podcast, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities.